The morning had started with promise, the kind of promise Ethan Reyes hadn't felt in months. He stood in front of the cracked bathroom mirror of his tiny studio apartment, adjusting the knot of his tie for the 10th time, willing his hands to stop trembling. Today was supposed to be the end of desperate job searches, the end of rejection emails, the end of stretching packets of instant noodles across 3 days. Today, he had an interview at Stratus Dynamics, a company so respected that even getting called in felt like a small miracle. "You've got this," he told his reflection, even though his reflection didn't look like it believed him. He checked the time, grabbed his resume folder, shrugged into his only suit, and hurried out into the crisp morning air. The sky was a heavy gray, clouds thick like wet wool, promising rain. Ethan didn't own an umbrella. He hadn't been able to justify the expense, but he didn't care. Not today. Even rain couldn't ruin this. He walked fast, mentally rehearsing potential interview answers. What are your strengths? Attention to detail. Reliability. I don't give up easily. Describe a challenge you overcame. Life. Just life. The first drops began to fall as he reached the main street. He tugged his jacket closed around him, clutching the folder under his arm. The Stratus building was only a few blocks away now, the glass tower stabbing into the sky like a promise he was finally close enough to touch. And then he saw her. A woman in a dark green coat, kneeling on the wet sidewalk. Grocery bags surrounding her like fallen soldiers, apples rolling toward the street, a carton of milk split open and leaking white across the pavement. She was holding onto a little girl, no more than 5, who was attempting to break free, her small hands slipping as she struggled to stand. A wave of wind blew, and the child stumbled dangerously close to the edge of the crosswalk where a bus roared past, spraying water over both of them. "Mommy, cold," the child cried, her voice trembling. The woman's face was pale with panic. "It's okay, sweetheart, just stay still." But her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't even zip the child's coat. Ethan's breath caught. He looked at the building ahead, looked back at them, looked again at the building. His chest squeezed painfully. Every instinct inside him screamed, "Run to your interview. Don't ruin this chance." But another voice, quieter, stubborn, the voice his mother raised him with, whispered, "Help her. Someone has to." Before he even realized it, he'd already stepped off the curb. "Ma'am," he called out, jogging toward them. "Do you need help?" The woman looked up at him, soaked to the bone, strands of hair stuck to her cheeks. Relief flashed across her face so raw it almost hurt to see. "Yes," she breathed. "Please." He dropped to his knees beside her, not caring that puddles soaked through his suit instantly. The child was shivering violently now, little lips tinted blue, hands clutching her mother's sleeves. "Hey there," Ethan said softly to the girl. "We're gonna get you warm, okay? I promise." He shrugged off his suit jacket, his only jacket, and wrapped it around her tiny shoulders. She blinked up at him, eyes wide. He smiled gently, tightening the fabric. Next, he helped gather the scattered groceries, ignoring the rain pounding down on him. A man walked by, stepping around them without a glance. Then another. A woman with an umbrella shook her head and crossed to the other side. No one stopped. Ethan felt something hot and angry flicker in his chest. How could people see this and keep walking? He secured the woman's grocery cart, fixed the bent wheel, picked up every apple, every dropped item that wasn't ruined. When he stood, he extended his hand to the woman. "There's a shelter across the street," he said. "They've got heaters inside. Let me walk you." She hesitated, as if unsure she should trust him, then nodded. "Thank you, truly." The child's hand slipped into his without being asked. Small, cold, trusting. They crossed together, Ethan walking slow to keep pace with the girl's little steps. Every second ticking by felt like a hammer hitting his stomach. He tried not to look at the time. Tried not to think about the interview he was supposed to ace, the one lifeline he'd been counting on for weeks. But then the little girl sneezed, a sharp, painful sound, and instinctively, he tightened his hold on her tiny fingers. Their priority changed, or maybe his heart already knew what mattered more. Inside the shelter, warmth hit them like a soft wave. Ethan knelt to help the woman take off the girl's soaked socks and shoes. Volunteers hurried over with towels and hot cocoa. The child finally smiled when Ethan helped her wrap up in the towel like a tiny burrito. "You're a hero," she murmured sleepily as she sipped cocoa. He swallowed hard at that. "No, sweetheart, I just helped." The woman stepped toward him, emotions knotting her voice. "You didn't have to stop. Most people wouldn't." He shrugged, embarrassed. Anyone would've, but they both knew that wasn't true. He checked the time only after the girl began to warm up, laughter replacing sniffles. He froze. 43 minutes late. His heartbeat stuttered. He rose quickly. I'm so sorry, I need to go, I have an interview. And he left the shelter at a half sprint. By the time he reached the Stratus building, he was drenched, hair plastered to his forehead, resume folder soaked and wilting around the edges. He tried to wipe the water off before approaching the front desk. I'm here for the 11 o'clock interview, he said breathlessly. I'm late, but, the receptionist didn't even look at him. Name, Ethan Reyes. More typing, more silence. Then, they moved on. Positions filled. He stared at her, throat tight. Can I reschedule? Explain. No. She turned away. He was dismissed. Ethan stepped back from the desk, unspeaking. Without the interview, he had nothing. No plan, no income, no idea what tomorrow would look like. But even with that heavy ache in his chest, a quiet certainty settled inside him. He didn't regret stopping, not for a second. He walked outside into the rain again, letting it wash over him like it had earlier. This time, he didn't run. He just walked, slowly, silent. Maybe kindness didn't pay bills. Maybe good people always came last. He didn't know yet that across town, a woman in a dry office was telling her HR director. Find him, I'm not just hiring him, I want him working under me directly. He didn't know that the girl he saved was curled up warm, telling every volunteer. The hero guy saved me. He didn't know that fate, for once, was on his side. He only knew the rain kept falling. And he kept walking. Monday morning arrived. Ethan stood in front of Stratus Dynamics for the second time in a week, but this time, someone was actually expecting him. He stared up at the colossal skyscraper, glass gleaming under the sun like a blade. Last time, he had stood here soaked, humiliated, and broken. Now he wore the same suit, freshly washed, carefully ironed, though still showing its age, and tried to steady the fluttering nerves in his chest. He still couldn't shake the surreal feeling of the video call with Elena Hart, the CEO herself, offering him a role far above anything he imagined. Project operations lead, reporting directly to her. It felt unreal, too good, like a dream someone forgot to end properly. Don't mess this up, he whispered to himself. Not after everything that happened. Inside the lobby, a receptionist greeted him with a polished smile, not the same one who dismissed him days ago. This one seemed kinder, or maybe he was simply too nervous to read her expression clearly. Welcome, Mr. Reyes, she said. The CEO is waiting for you on the 42nd floor. The words alone made his stomach flip. The elevator ride felt endless and too fast at the same time. His hands fidgeted with the strap of his bag. He kept replaying the moment when Elena recognized him through the rain on the video call, the warmth in her eyes, the sincerity in her voice. Most CEOs he'd imagined were sharp, distant, iron-willed. But she looked at him as though she truly saw him. When the elevator doors slid open, he stepped into a quiet hallway with floor-to-ceiling windows and sleek black and gold interiors. Footsteps echoed softly. Ethan, he turned. There she was. Elena Hart stood at the end of the hall, no longer soaked and frantic as she'd been that day, but poised, elegant, confident. Dark hair falling neatly over her shoulders. A fitted navy suit, a presence that filled the corridor even before she smiled. Good morning, she said warmly. I'm glad you came. He managed a nod. Thank you for all of this. I still don't know why you helped my daughter, she said simply, as if that explained everything. And you didn't hesitate. That tells me more about your character than any resume ever could. He opened his mouth, trying to find something to say, but she gestured for him to follow her. I'll show you your office. Your office, not a cubicle, not a shared workspace. He swallowed and trailed behind her, his heartbeat loud in his ears. The office she led him to was small but modern, glass walls, a wide desk, a window overlooking the city, and a computer that probably cost more than 3 months of his rent. This is mine, he asked weakly. She laughed, a soft, genuine sound. Unless you'd prefer a broom closet. I think this will do. The ease in her tone surprised him. CEOs weren't supposed to joke, right? But she spoke to him like a person, not an employee she barely knew. She stepped closer, handing him a folder. Her perfume, something clean, soft, expensive, drifted between them. This outlines your first project, she said. We're launching a new logistics initiative, and I want you overseeing the groundwork. You'll have a team, but I'll be checking in with you personally." He blinked. "Personally?" "Yes," she said, meeting his eyes. "I meant it when I said I want you working directly with me." Something fluttered in his chest, excitement, yes, but something else too. Something he quickly swallowed down, forcing his focus back to her words. "Do you have any questions before we begin?" Elena asked. Just then, a small voice echoed down the hall. "Mommy." They both turned. Little Lily sprinted toward them, her ponytail bouncing, a drawing clutched in her hand. Ethan's heart melted a little at the sight. "Hi," she squeaked at him, as if they were old friends. "You're the hero, man." Ethan knelt instinctively. "Just Ethan is okay." She grinned shyly and held out her drawing. It was a lopsided sketch of him holding an umbrella over her, despite the fact he didn't even have one that day. "It's us," she said proudly. "I made it for you." Emotion crawled up his throat so fast he had to swallow hard. "Thank you, Lily. I love it." Elena watched the exchange with a softness she hadn't shown before, a tenderness reserved only for her daughter. Ethan noticed the faint exhaustion around her eyes, the weariness beneath her polished exterior. Being a CEO was hard enough. Being a single mother too. He couldn't imagine the pressure. "Sorry," Elena murmured, lifting Lily into her arms. Her nanny had to drop her off early. "It's okay," Ethan said quickly. "I don't mind." He meant it, more than he expected. After Lily returned to the playroom near Elena's office, the CEO turned to him again. "I know this is overwhelming," she admitted, voice quieter now. "And I know you weren't expecting your life to change this quickly." "No," he said softly. "But I'm grateful." For a moment, they stood in the quiet hallway, just looking at each other, two people whose lives had intersected on a rainy sidewalk in a way neither could have predicted. "Let's get to work," she said finally. Hours passed in a blur of schedules, explanations, project outlines, and introductions. Ethan took diligent notes, absorbing every detail. Elena was patient, thorough, and unexpectedly encouraging, praising his ideas, asking for his opinions, trusting his instincts. He wasn't used to being treated like someone whose thoughts mattered. Late in the afternoon, she called him into her office. "How was your first day?" she asked. He exhaled. "Honestly, it feels like I walked into someone else's life." Her lips curved. "Maybe you finally walked into the life you deserve." He looked down, overwhelmed. "I was ready to give up last week. Think I wasn't good enough. That people like me don't get chances like this." She leaned back in her chair, studying him thoughtfully. "People like you," she said, "are exactly the ones who should lead. You just needed someone to see it." He wasn't prepared for the way those words pierced something deep inside him. Elena stood, walking around her desk. She paused inches from him, close enough to feel her presence, close enough to smell the faint vanilla in her perfume. "I meant it when I said I want to invest in you," she said. "Today, tomorrow, as long as you're willing to put in the work." He nodded, unable to speak at first. I absolutely am." She smiled, not the CEO smile, not the polite corporate one, but a genuine one that warmed her whole face. "Good," she whispered. Then the office door burst open. "Mommy, can Ethan come home with us for dinner?" Both adults froze. Elena turned scarlet. "Lily." The girl pouted. "But he's nice." Ethan couldn't help laughing, and so did Elena, despite trying not to. "We'll see," Elena said, flustered but amused. After Lily was guided back out, silence settled between them again. A softer silence. A different silence. Elena cleared her throat. "Anyway, enjoy your first day's success, Ethan. There's more to come." As he left her office, closing the glass door gently behind him, one truth settled heavily but beautifully in his chest. Missing that interview had been the best mistake of his life. He wasn't just starting a new job. He was stepping into a new future. A future with purpose, with hope, and maybe, just maybe, with something more growing quietly between him and the woman who had become his boss. The woman he had saved. The woman who, in her own way, had now saved him too.